Good morning, everybody. Here we are, another day at the beach, and Spirit Gateway's Inquiry. And Ayana Lahi is here today. She is the founder and the creative director and the chief evolutionary officer, the CEO of Spirit Gateways Institute. And we're here for another extraordinary time to have Spirit Gateway's Inquiry. Ayana, welcome. Thank you for being here today on this beautiful morning.
Thank you.
We spent a lot of time in the last few sessions talking about Spirit Gateways Institute and many of the programs that you have and how people benefit and things about the true self or the ego operating system and ABR, abandonment, betrayal, and rejection. One of the topics that we've been talking about but we haven't yet had on camera is conversation about the divine masculine and the divine feminine. So maybe could you share with us a little bit about how you look at that from the Spirit Gateways perspective?
I would love to. The divine masculine and divine feminine has been a deep, cherished part of my own soul and teachings. And I first awakened to the power of knowing your own divine masculine and feminine over 35 years ago. And it was really life-changing for me in the work that I have been doing with clients and continue to do. I realized that the source of pain that's inside of men and women, and in particular men, came from the separation from knowing who they really are in their true masculine and their true feminine. And living in that separation always creates pain. And in our culture, there are so many models of what the masculine is, what the feminine is, that most of us grow up fitting ourselves into those models, the way that it looks, the way that we think we need to be in order to be a man or be a woman. And the divine masculine and divine feminine is an expression of our eternal infinite self. It's the imprint that we carry with us. It's like the seed of who we are. And by opening and discovering and embodying our true masculine and true feminine, we then become aligned to our destiny path. It's our soul blueprint being revealed. Our inner masculine and inner feminine are the two aspects of our soul. And that's why, they're the yin-yang sign. And in cultures from around the world, ancient traditions, there's always the recognition and the acknowledgement of the divine feminine, the divine masculine, because they do make up the soul. And so during these times, we are so swayed by what's in our head about being a man, being a woman, and losing that connection to the function and the mission of our inner masculine and our inner feminine has taken us really off course. And the inner feminine is so necessary to find for both men and women. And we are living in a time when the inner feminine within both the man and woman has been split off from. And the masculine in both men and women are seriously struggling. And for men right now, it is a very, very deep and profound gap that has happened, seeing the feminine only outside of oneself, either to support and love or to turn against and overrule and try to overpower. The masculine in the male body right now has to refine its own inner feminine, and we're seeing that happen in the culture of men seeking their feminine and what that would feel like, because the old model and the paradigm that many men who are awakening are facing is how to feel, and when we feel, what to do with the feelings that arise. Many men right now are identifying with the feeling that comes up and identifying that who I am is that feeling, but the feeling is covering over the depth of one's true self, and to not get caught up in the feeling. And there's a level of grief that emerges in both men and women when we reconnect with our feminine, because there's so much power, there's so much life energy, there's an ignition that happens, and being separate from the source of creation is painful, and it's pushed our collective thinking into creating models on the outside.
So could you talk for a moment? We talked in the past about this idea of love and power, and the traditional models are that women are the love and men are the power.
Yes.
And you take a different perspective.
Yeah.
In spirit gateways.
Yeah, I've experienced that it is actually the opposite, that the feminine is true power. The feminine is the source of life energy. It's the power that opens the bud busting through the earth. It's the power that moves the tides, and it's the power that's inside of men and women. And the masculine is here to awaken to the love that is inside of the heart center. And the heart center is the womb for men. And for women, the womb in the belly is the source of the power. So when we open to our divine masculine and divine feminine, we are reigniting both the heart and the lower belly, and then unifying them in that conscious energetic circuitry. So it's time to, we're reinventing, we have to reinvent the way that we are in relationship with our own inner divine masculine, inner divine feminine, in order to become whole. And it's only through becoming whole and integrated, again, that our mind shifts, because our brain has to reconnect in with this new circuitry. And that's what will create the new thought systems and economic and social and political systems that right now are totally void of this connection. And so things are in a gap.
So, the last 60 or 70 years have been a monumental change in the planet, especially in the Western world, around gender roles, around women's empowerment. You see this in the women's empowerment movement starting in the 60s and really emerging in the 70s. You see that in the men's movement that functionally was a bit later, didn't really start until the 80s, and sort of began to take off in the early 90s. And there are some great luminaries on both sides, women and men, women talking about men's work and men talking about women's work, and of course women talking about women and men. But we seem to have fallen into some pretty clearly defined traditional roles, at least in American society. and perhaps in European society, and yet there's tremendous dissension and tremendous polarity and tremendous angst on both sides. And it's, some of it's economic, some of it's social, some of it's, the role of the family, all these sorts of things that end up being a big mishmash and huge polarity and actually huge anger in many ways. It gets expressed in many, many different ways. And I'm just wondering if you could talk about how the Spirit Gateways Institute and how your programs address that and do it from a level of the true self, not just at this archetypal level, not just on this level that is good intellectually and mentally, but really is within you.
How we start in the Spirit Gateways Institute program is that you discover your true divine feminine, you discover your true divine masculine, and you bring them together inside. And this is what in ancient Greek lifestyle was known as the Hieros Gamos. And the Hieros Gamos is the sacred union. And so imagine being in union with yourself, and what happens is that tremendous amounts of anxiety and a deep grief dissipate. They actually fall away. Because once you end the gap, the separation, it comes into union. The anger that's inside of ourself, the anger inside the feminine, the divine feminine, is that it hasn't been seen, heard, or received. And all of anger is connected to not being seen, heard, or received. And the woman, those of you in a woman's body, you have to receive yourself, the voice, the truth, the energetic presence of your power. Your power is your truth. And it turns into anger when it's not fully embodied. Once it's embodied, it is so powerful that it motivates you and moves you to be doing exactly what you need to do. And so, yes, of course, there's anger when the masculine, in its own separation from the whole, is working to repress, control, and abuse the very source of power that it has inside of itself. But to open to that source of power within inside of oneself means facing one's own need to control and the need to be in the egoic false self. And so the main focus and embrace in the Spirit Gateways Institute is the return to one's true self. And so the divine masculine and feminine is the gateway, a major gateway. There's a few major gateways, and this is really life-changing because you now enter into your spiritual connection instead of the mental, emotional connection that's living in separation from its source. Once we open to the divine qualities, the aspects, the living, breathing, really true feminine and masculine, without the archetype, without saying, oh, I'm this archetype or I'm that archetype. All the archetypes that are described in Greek and Roman mythology are real, they're genuine, but you have your unique expression of your feminine, your masculine, and when you bring them together, you are entering into a dance, the dance of your life. And so, for instance, when I found my inner masculine, I discovered this whole aspect of myself that has been working in my life since I was very small. But by knowing it and by being able to honor, embrace my true feminine and be able to open to my own inner divine masculine, then began the completion, this completion within inside of myself that brought trust, in my own process, and that I am divinely connected to live in the world in a new way. When the feminine in a woman is blocked, the woman becomes controlling, manipulating. When the divine feminine is blocked in a man, he becomes controlling and manipulating. And so a lot of relationship issues with ourself, with people that we care about, but predominantly in intimate relationships, completely elevate when the inner reunion of our true self through opening into our divine masculine and feminine happens. And we're shifting from the intellectual experience of it existing into a true embodiment level, that we are this incredible, intelligent, infinite expression, divine spark of being one and whole, so that we are naturally living in a sacred connection, and we're able to see the contrasts of life, to really see the pain in life, not run from it, understand that we are living in a time of exasperated separation, and that each and every one of us has that responsibility to learn to respond to that separation in ourselves and be willing to take the risk to find who we really are in that divine masculine and feminine, because you're going to be in for a wonderful surprise.
So talk to me just for a moment about something tangible in terms of Spirit Gateway's courses and what that means. Because you have some courses that are specific for women. You have a course, I believe, called We Women of Light, which is a group mentoring program, and I think that you've shared with me that you're in process of developing a program, a group mentoring program specific for men. You've done a lot of both. You've facilitated groups, both only men and only women, and facilitated groups that are both genders, both sexes. And of course, all of the courses, all of the video and the audio classes are for everybody. But could you explain or share with me a little bit about how someone, like some man who's let's just take an example. At work, a man has reports to a manager who's a woman, and that woman is not in her divine feminine, and he's not in his divine masculine. They both have whatever experience of separation in their life for whatever reason, right? And they're good people, and they try hard. But there's some obvious gaps in the management capability and some obvious gaps in the responsibility of the man to effectively deal with things. How would working with you or taking some of the Spirit Gateway's courses, how would that practically influence their life, and what tangible results?
That's beautiful. In the Be Light meditation work that I've created, there are dozens of Be Light meditation. They work with the spiritual, energetic, the physics of the matter and spirit in the body, and how I would work with that with you or in a group, whether individually or in a group, is through a Be Light meditation that would connect your third eye, your heart, and your lower belly, the second power point center, so that you could be in the connection, the integration of your mind, your emotions, and your soul simultaneously. It's an entering into the circuitry, a new alignment inside of you. So as you are approaching the person that you are working with, that you are co-collaborating with, that you might have to report to, that you have expectations, you are working in the alignment in yourself, and you're trusting in your alignment, but you're speaking and showing up from an integrated place, which automatically makes you less reactive, able to listen more able to see the big picture, because in the Spirit Gateways we're working with the 360 perspective. So the internal sexual, spiritual, physical integration happens in the signature courses. And there's 3 main signature courses that are part of the Spirit Gateways library. And in the Spirit Gateways Passport, one of the 3 of the main courses, I go into the sexual energies abundantly, and having your own sexual energies aligned with your soul awakened and your physical body being an awakened container for yourself eliminates the need to have to overanalyze and get stuck in the way the mind is thinking, and you're able to source your own love and power. So the more in balance that you are, the easier it becomes for the person that you're working for in collaboration with, because you are anchored in yourself, and then energetically it supports the other person to go into their own place at some point themselves.
So this might be a silly example, but let's take it to another level. So let's just make an assumption that this female manager and this male direct report are both good people, that they're trying hard. They're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to be cordial in their teamwork and their managerial and reporting relationship. And yet, the man doesn't realize it, but he has a lot of hidden anger towards women because of an unresolved issue with his mother, let's say.
Okay.
Let's say his mother was very controlling as a child, and he was never able to express himself and fully be who he is. And the flip side is that this woman was always told by her parents that in order to make it in the world, she had to do away with her feminine, do away with her feelings, do away with that emotional side, and be more logical, more rational. And yet she's recognized that, and she's tried to temper the two, try and balance the masculine and feminine within her. But both of them are dealing with their own unresolved issues from childhood, let's say. Perhaps it's from other areas, maybe it's other life experiences. And they have their own versions of kind of emotional trauma that may be overt or may be hidden, but it comes out in some conflict between how does working with you or working with some of the courses help them understand that so that they can make that internal shift rather than going to a program that their business or their company might have that says, oh, we need to do more emotional intelligence work, or we need to do something from the outside and you have to be aware. What's that balance? How does that work with Spirit Gateways?
How it works in Spirit Gateways is the dive-in, the re-entry into the source. It's an energetic light connection, and through making that reconnection in yourself, which usually takes most people about 2 minutes, the entire thinking system and feeling system are reconnected. And so you're not having to try to make the change happens. And that's one of the incredible abilities of the Spirit Gateways 21st Century Liberation Roadmap practices. And the hidden anger has to be dealt with through receiving what's underneath the anger. And underneath the anger for that man is that anger of not really being seen by his mother, having to possibly kowtow to her needs, whatever his dynamic was set up in place, and for him to show up in himself to receive his own anger so that the other person's anger that may come up, because in the situation you're describing, she needs to hold on to being controlling because she's controlling herself she can't feel her own feelings. And so by opening to her feelings, her emotional intelligence will make a radical shift because she's opening the door. If we keep the door shut, no matter what theory we take on, we're not making a real shift. We're not making the leap. We have to open the door. So he's opening the door to what he's always needed and allowing himself to love himself. The woman manager is resistant to let go of control because she's not going to know if she's going to be walked over. She doesn't know if she'll be put down or humiliated. Both individuals are most concerned about being humiliated and judged and avoiding pain. And so by both people understanding their own pain and reconnecting the light of themselves, and that's what happens. And it happens quickly, and it oftentimes brings that emotional cathartic breakthrough so that both individuals would have something to hold on to in themselves. One has to re-anchor. It's a new anchor that you're throwing down into the sea, the ocean of life inside of oneself. And you begin that process of trusting your own connection in yourself. You make the shift from your ego operating system that has been created uniquely in our own awareness. Every person creates their ego operating system, the false self, to survive, to be able to not be lost in themselves. And when we reconnect to the source within ourselves, it then cracks open that new connection with the true self. And by being connected to the true self, the emotional intelligence, the sacred divine intelligence, the genius intelligence is able to open. What we're doing is we're opening up this central circuit. We're shifting from trying to fix the parts to working with the core system.
So tell me, we talked in the past about the wound, core wound, and we haven't yet really dived into the issue of the mother wound and the father wound. So how does that play into this discovery of within ourselves of the divine masculine and divine feminine?
That's a beautiful question. When we have not yet worked with our mother wound and the father wound, the mother wound and the father wound happens through the ways that we felt that we couldn't exist, that who we really truly were did not matter, that we could never really be enough to get that love, or perhaps the way we needed to be had to be a certain way. And inside, deep in that core place where we exist in, we leave that place that I exist, I'm loved for exactly who I am, and we embody and internalize the core separation from ourself. And there's the pain of never being able to have that full bonding experience where we feel one in the heart with our mother and with our father. And our father is meant to be the initiator, to support us to live in the world. And the mother is meant to be the connector to the divine source herself. And so when a child, for instance, is raised by a mother who needs the child to fill something in her, needs the child to fill a gap, perhaps her own husband is not able to emotionally fulfill her, she's separate from her own divine feminine and her own divine masculine. So the child is put into this awkward position because every child, and especially the male, needs the connection to God, the infinite source, through mother. And without that, there is a lack of nurturing, and a lot of emotional and psychological issues develop from that separation. And just like if the father is absent, the child grows up feeling self-doubting, questioning its own worth, because the masculine defines worth. The masculine, the divine masculine, holds and supports structures for the feminine life force to emerge. There's always a constant partnership within ourselves. In ourselves is this dance of holding, supporting, transforming that light of who we are. The transformational energy is our divine feminine. The masculine is constantly working to support, grow, embody, structure this enormous creation that is the divine feminine itself. So the wound has to be healed to evolve and grow, and all of the Spirit Gateways programs, all of the courses deal with the core wound, because once you are free to really be really connected into your true self, that you discover, you find, it's like it opens, you open. What happens is that you are now able to spiritually grow and materially grow together, so that your life path is happening together. It's one and the same.
So, excuse me, we live in a very interesting time of confusion, some would say, about gender roles. Not just, and that's also embraces confusion, quote unquote, some people would say confusion, about sexuality. And they're very distinctly different in many ways. And you can see a return in many areas in the West towards more conservative values, more social values, values that define women in a very narrow perspective in terms of the role they play in society, or the role they play in a family, or the role they play as a mother to children, and as a childbearer, and that's in pretty big opposition, contrast. I don't want to use the word opposition. Let's use the word contrast to this radical emergence, this rapid emergence over the last 30 or 40 years of how women are coming out coming out from underneath the thumb of being in a very male-dominated world. And there's now a lot of pushback around that, social pushback in many ways. How would you look at that from a divine masculine and divine feminine point of view, and moving away from these traditional roles, and yet this sort of rubber band approach that is now springing back for some people to traditional roles?
Earlier you brought up the anger, and the anger is the underlying piece, because without the wholeness of being connected to our inner divine feminine, we're going to feel anger, because unexpressed power comes through as anger. And so this emergence that's happening should not be at the male. It should not be at men. That's a really huge mistake, because all men have the feminine within themselves, and that feminine has a power, and it's unique to each man. And the bridge to crossover is to define that a man has to find his own inner feminine, and to have that compassion, and a woman learning how to hold space, how to open the door, how to set the standard from the heart, not from anger, not from being shut down and completely cut off from her own feminine power, and then either fitting into old traditional roles or being in positions of leadership by shutting down the true feminine. The solution is the integration. But women have to be able to hold the space for a man to discover their own feminine and how to be the man who is not living in separation and anger, and being the example and being aligned. And when we are aligned in this source connection that both men and women learn through the Spirit Gateway's work, you come into a different 360 brain-body experience, because your brain lives in your whole body. And right now the cultures in the United States and in other parts of the world are rapidly moving into the separation state again. And it's swinging, and it will have to swing back. What's really important is to not be disconnected from the victim part of oneself. Both men and women have felt victimized, and victimized by their own thoughts, their own ego, by other people. And to know that that source of truth, that real voice of wisdom and divine intelligence is within you. The key is to be able to identify whether you are in your ego operating system that's always making sure to fulfill the role that you gave it at some point. And it is the ego operating system will do whatever it needs to keep you repressed. And so until we break through becoming aware of our ego operating system and strengthening that true self operating system, we're not able to hold our truth, our real self. The truth, the real truth, comes from being connected into the true self. And that true self is centered in the heart, the spiritual centers, and the survival centers in the base of the body being cleared. And both men and women have to clear those base centers. And yes, that happens all the time in all of the practices and experiences.
So you've shared with me in other conversations that you have a couple of different women's group mentoring programs that are available. You have one that's designed really for women in business, leaders, executives, thought leaders, creatives, founders, VCs, and another one that's also, these are both small groups, maybe up to 10 or 12 women. Another one that is really more for women. Well, I'll let you explain it. You share with me what those two programs are.
That second one you're mentioning, We Women of Light, is a small group, 12 women, and it is doing the inner work to ignite through mending and healing the ways that we have left ourselves, to reconnect the source, power, and love that's within inside of ourselves in a group of women who are all dedicated to being able to really be who they are and move into their life. And it's a deep immersion into awakening and embodying who you truly are in 12 weeks. And the program for founders and CXOs is a high-powered program because there's very specific issues that happen through being a woman leader and being guiding and initiating new thought forms of business and organizational development, and bringing new products and services, and integrating being human and business savvy, and being a woman, and being able to be really connected into your feminine needs, your sexuality, your sensuality, your genius self, and being free in yourself, because there's a lot of tensions and pressures that happen. And so we work deeply in that realm to move through those anxieties and to receive new tools and practices that reunite the spiritual and the intellectual, together, so that there's greater freedom. And the men's work that I'm rolling out is it's a deep passion of mine, because men really need the pathway, the roadmap, to be able to move through into their true self, and to know how to self-support and to be supported by other men, and to break through those difficult places of holding on that happen in the masculine body's psyche. So what this work really, really does is it cracks open your psychophysical, your psychological and physical structure, and it melts through your awakening into your spiritual light. You have awakening after awakening. And so the awakening is the essence. There's not a whole lot of there's really no part of any of the programs getting caught in your emotional stuff. The emotions are important, but the breakthrough into the aha, into the open expression and anchoring into how to solve your life issues, challenges, and dilemmas happen from being wired into your new operating system.
So, of course, you have Tribe Transformation, which is a 3-tier program that's group mentoring, based on group mentoring for men and women. You also have your True Self mentoring, which is one-on-one work that you do, and that can be done in a very holistic manner, whether a woman is a leader in business or a leader in the arts or whatever a leader in their whatever profession they have, and or the role that they play in terms of wanting to develop themselves more fully, so that one-on-one work is available for them. Do you have anything that you would offer for couples?
Yes. Love the couple work. I have a special couples program that is called Awakening Sex, Money, and Love. And in Awakening Sex, Money, and Love, as a couple, you experience opening into the light matrix, the energetics that open your internal system, so that your sex and intimacy increase, where the old wounds that have been rearing their head in the relationship are able to be mended through a higher octave. And this work is powerful in the Awakening Money, Sex, and Love. It's a 4-session series. So we go deep, we move quickly, and your sexual union in yourself individually is then brought into your couple connection sexually, and this energy is then integrated into your financial and prosperity growth, because your money and your sexuality are unified. When a man and a woman are unified in the core connection to that powerful and invigorating and visionary and anchored reality of both their sexual and financial reality, miracles happen and breakthroughs happen, and together as a couple you get to move from a unified relationship place into creating greater financial abundance, no matter where you are, whether you're, wherever you are financially.
So we've talked about today. We've talked about some really core issues, some really fundamental things about what it means to be human. We've talked about the role of the male, the role of the female, gender roles. We've talked about divine masculine, divine feminine. We've talked about sexuality. We've talked about the relationship between men and women. We've talked about changing understandings of gender and gender roles, and how some people would call that confusion and other people would call that liberation, because they're free of some social constraints around roles that we play. We've talked a little bit about the relationship of love and power, and how that's often confused between the sexes, between the male and the female genders, and how coming together of both of them in this divine dance that you so eloquently referred back to in the Greek way of calling heteroskamos, really comes out, and it's that play, that balance, that divine balance that you're talking about. If you wanted to wrap this up for today and talk about what this really means for an individual experiencing that state of oneness, that state of non-separation, that state of non-duality, and what that can mean when more people have that experience. And I'm going to use this word in a very loose way. It has like a popcorn effect in the world, right? How would that influence social structure and overall, dynamics in our society?
By each couple and each individual choosing to reconnect to their spiritual, sexual oneness, that reconnection place that you come into in the Spirit Gateways work, you become a walking, living model in your world. No matter how small you might think your world is, you're making a difference, or how big your influence can really get. And the more of us that come through the limitations and the internal undealt with unresolved wounds of pain and resistance, which both are always working together, breaking free and open into a unified state that emanates joy and compassion, kindness with boundaries, love with power, we can create that rippling effect that is able to bring in peace. When a couple is living in peace, when we are each unified in inner peace, our peace is then multiplied through how we speak with others, how we run our company, how we show up and communicate, how we raise our children. By healing and mending and reunifying our own divine masculine and feminine, we can create the model from within ourselves to then bring into our world of peace. And the separations underlying all the systems on our planet at this time are all tied to the separation of the divine masculine and divine feminine within ourself. And by reconnecting into the oneness within ourself in a fierce, compassionate way, we're able to then create world peace down the road. Right now we're in a swing to drastic conflict and separation. And through the polarity of this intense separation that's manifesting on many levels, from hatred and control to absolute disconnect from our human source, into that unified place where love and power reunite through bringing the inner masculine, inner feminine together and knowing how to live from that place.
I love what you said, fierce compassion. I love that. That's so important in a world that has become so numb and so inured to the trauma and the tragedy that's around us, because we see it so frequently and we feel so helpless. So this to me, this gives me a tremendous amount of hope that the work that you're doing and how you're sharing this with so many people can really help them resolve that inner battle within themselves and become less separate and more whole and more full. So Ayana, thank you very, very much for joining us. And everybody who's with us today, if you liked what you heard and you want to hear more, give us a thumbs up. subscribe to Ayana's channel on YouTube. Go to ayanalahi.com. Sign up, subscribe to her mailing list. Become part of the Spirit Gateway's Evolutionary Empowerment Global Village. It's free. There's a lot of free offerings, podcasts, many things on YouTube. Check out Tribe Transformation. Check out True Self Mentoring. Check out Awaken Sex, Money, and Love. Check out We Women of Light. There's so much that Ayana has done and prepared. It's almost overwhelming. Look forward. She's in the process of doing these things with men. Check out the website for everything and get on the mailing list so that you can be kept abreast of everything. And thank you so much for joining us today. We value you. We appreciate you. We thank you so much for your presence. And many blessings. Thank you.
Thank you. All my love.